Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Pantheon Rise of the Fallen development stream. As always, I am joined by my co-host. I guess as always works, right? For the second
I mean,
time, I am
it
joined by
does
my
now.
co-host. Yes, Savanya. Welcome to our June update, everybody. Welcome, Savanya. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back. I know that we debated a little bit about having the wig as the co-host, but I'm happy that I made the cut.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a battle. We had an internal voting. We had some VIP votes. But if we did the wig, the problem was it was going to have the halfling voice. So everybody just voted it right out really quick. So it's probably better we didn't do that.
Boo. I like the halfling voice.
So that said, let's get into what our community can expect today. If you've been following our development streams recently, we've been heavily focused on recent class refreshes and really getting them into a great place for the early experience that players will have. Last month, we covered the Shaman, and the month before that, we covered the Dire Lord. We'll continue that towards the end of this stream by covering the refresh of the Rogue. You know I'm excited about this one. Everybody that knows us or is part of the community knows that they probably got a seatbelt buckled in a little bit and like, all right, here we go.
Why is that though? Did you finally learn how to play one?
Oh,
I'm sorry. That was mean and untrue. I know. I know you know your class. It's your fave class, and I'm certain you did them justice.
yeah, I do love rogues. Lots and lots. Um, but yes, I did learn how to play one and decently too. So that said, we're not going to be talking about all just the rogue today. So don't worry, everybody. Even though I know there's some of you out there that wish I would just talk about the rogue for 2 hours, but maybe we'll figure that out some other night. That said, one of the things we just did is we actually brought back a segment, if you guys had seen before, called 10 Burning Questions. We actually reached out to the community, and Sav actually gathered most of these questions and posed them up for the developers. So that said, let's go ahead and start the stream by going into 10 Burning Questions.
10 burning questions.
All right, Sav. So if you would take the honors, and why don't you start us off with the first question, and then maybe we'll just rotate going through them.
Yeah. So the first one to get us started. Uh, this is this is a good one. Any chance the roadmap could be more of a flow chart or something that shows what's being worked on and what's next? It would be great if it was easier to follow progress to alpha. This is a great question because it happens to be at the forefront of our to-do list in our specific department. We agree that the roadmap has become needlessly confusing and bloated. And much like we have simplified our Discord server and the official forums, we'd also like to make the roadmap more at a glance and easier to navigate. So I would expect to see that in the upcoming months.
Yeah. And check the producer's letter at the end of the month. Maybe you'll get a little bit more details. Shh. Okay. Question two. Of the recent projects, and again, remember, these are community gathered and then answered by our devs. So of the recent projects, what was a memorable challenge and how did you overcome it? So this is pretty cool because there's a couple different ones here. So the immediate dev that jumped into this was David, and Steve Clover also jumped in with some of the recent work that they've done. So as per David, I will highlight what he said. He basically said it was really painful to rebuild his deck on his house, but then we told him it's actually about our game, and he said, oh, and he pivoted a bit. So he talked about the math behind the scenes of the stats coming to life for crafted items and getting a lot of trial and error on what they wanted to achieve. Our testers have had a really big feel on this and understand sort of some of the complications and bugs that we originally had and how they're working through it and things like that. So it's been a big focal point for David recently. And this put him deep within spreadsheets for an amount of time. Now, when he answered the question for us, he was legitimately like, oh, I was stuck in spreadsheets. No. If you know David, he likes spreadsheets. Don't even fall for being stuck in spreadsheets. He enjoyed it.
100%.
Yeah. And one of the cool things about this, because Steve jumped in as well, this led to a lot of back and forth with him and Steve. And for those that don't know Steve Clover, who joined our programming team, he has had a huge hand in like system implementation. So he and David have really done all of this pretty quickly. Now, Steve wouldn't admit that. Steve will say, oh, well, I just did this, I just did that. But I will tell you that it's been pretty quick. Steve said that the crafted item stuff was some of the biggest challenges so far. And, they really had to start from the ground up with coding and implementation. It was just a challenge. I mean, it was everything from the interface pieces to how it would look to the player to how it actually functioned. Steve came in and just with David's data and planning was really able to implement that really quickly. And I think we've seen quite a few things, again, not overhyping Steve here, but a lot of things that Steve has been able to put in that's been very quick and pretty impactful. I mean, anything from the calibration screen for the light and darkness of the player's screen when people were having a hard time seeing, a lot of those types of systems. So really those two hit on that. I do have to put in there, Chris Perkins, everyone knows by Joppa, hopped in right at the end as we were putting these together and quote, he said, I'd say class and combat balance. He said he'd be sure to update us when he's overcome it. But I think with what we're seeing in the classes, and honestly, I'm not saying this just as a dev. I think if our VIPs talked about their classes and how they have been updated in the last few months, it's been tremendous. The classes feel unique. They feel powerful. They feel fun. And, we're still going here on a couple more. So I think he's doing really good. And, obviously the rogue should just be number one at everything. So it's easy.
No, also Sparrow said it. You cannot overhype Steve.
Yeah.
You can't.
You can't.
That guy is just insane. I don't know how he does everything he does. It's like magic.
Yep.
So next up, does JN have any plans for a Pantheon novel or series of books at some point? That's poor JN. Such a humble person. So JN's response was, if we get to a point where the game is successful enough to warrant a novel, we'd be delighted to do that. That said, creating the game, the in-game stories, dialogues, quests, how the player will interact with the world in-game is what's most important. And where our focus is. While that type of thing is awesome, the content in the game needs to be and is priority. So there you have it. JN is awesome, but JN is currently focused on the game.
Yep. Yeah, and Vandra just had a great, right from the chat says, what about lore pamphlets? I think I could get behind, like, trifold pamphlets. I could get behind that.
That would be great.
I'll hand them out on the
that's a
street. We
great
could
idea.
do like a segment on the street, like handing out Pantheon lore pamphlets just to random people. That'd be fun. It'd be a fun segment. I think.
Yeah, we should do that in Las Vegas so we can make it a work expense.
Yes, there you go. Vandrad, you can come. So question number 4. This was an interesting one, and I like the different perspectives we got here. So we had 2 different devs really jump and chime in on this. So the question from the community was, as AI enters the mainstream, specifically, how do you see artificial intelligent technologies impacting Pantheon's future development? It's a pretty hot topic. It's a pretty intense topic, but we had 2 different views of this. We had one from our art department and one from one of our executives, our customer service manager. So we'll start with our art department, which is Tara. And she said, while AI is an interesting technology, oh, no, I'm sorry. This is Michael first. My apologies. Michael said, while AI is an intriguing technology, I don't see it as a golden tool for development. There are some interesting applications, especially around making NPCs more alive in a game world. However, great game design will still require the human touch to make the game really stand out. From the partner development side, we have talked to quite a few companies in this arena. I think we are getting close as an industry to finding some uses for it, but not so much in the immediate future. So I think that's pretty good. Now, as I stated from Tara on the art side, she said, adding to what Michael said, and specifically from an art standpoint, AI generated images are a great way to visualize a lot of ideas quickly. But as the technology currently stands, it really can't replace human artists. She personally thinks that AI art will eventually become a standard part of the process. But as Michael said, the human touch will always be necessary to make something great. I think AI will eventually become a very useful tool, but not the only tool. So I think it's a hot topic right now across a lot of things. Like I've heard development
really
studios
is.
testing it for like writing quests and writing lore and writing dialogue. But but I don't foresee that being in the plans for us, at least at this standpoint. So I think it's
No.
to make the world we want and to make Pantheon everything that's in our tenets and to make this world alive. We need that human connection and that human touch that, JN's putting together and, David is now a part of, and obviously CP and our world builders. Like, it has to come together. And I don't think AI is there right now. So.
No, we're very hands-on. So let's see. Yeah, that was a frequently asked question, actually. So that was nice to get some couple opinions on that. So next up, will your player be allowed to have first and surname, and how will this system be laid out? Heck yeah, surnames, right? Michael Butler, Chris Perkins both chimed in on this. It has been discussed. The current design is that players will either be able to choose a surname when they're creating their character, but it won't activate until they hit level requirement, or the player may be prompted to create their surname once level requirement has been met. Either way, there will be a surname and you will be choosing it.
Yep. I think another important thing is it won't be like the old days where you had to get someone to make your surname for you. This will be more of an actual prestige type of thing, even if you pick it first, right? Like, you'll have that prestige of picking your last name or activating your last name. So
one more level of awesome. Yep.
It's hard though. I don't have a last name. Like, I've gone through a lot of things like minus paradox or like trying to think of another math term. I don't have a last name yet. That's a struggle for me. So I got to figure that out. Maybe we'll have the community. Community can submit names and we'll have to pick one or vote for it. That could go really bad.
That would just be great.
All right. Question number 6. This was a fun one because we have mostly serious questions here, but we did a couple fun ones. This is a funny one from the community, and I'm going to get into details why for those that don't know. But it was asked, at what point do you say the new character artist, Chris Willis, who is known as Bronson, is not working out? So the reason that we picked this, and it's funny because Chris got a good laugh out of this. For those of you that don't know, Bronson is not only a ridiculously talented, effective artist due to his vast experience in the industry, but the reason for the joke, and if you don't know this and you're not in our Discord, and the community love for him is because he came strictly from our VIP group and has supported Pantheon for quite some time. I don't want to jump into his background and share a bunch of stuff without asking him, but when I was in the community, I actually bonded with him as a community member because he worked on one of my favorite games of all time. And it was just really fun to talk about the game. He is super experienced and has a lot of knowledge. And we've been really fortunate, I guess is the best word, for him to come on board. And not only has he been quickly putting in some amazing work already, but his leadership and experience has actually been showing through the whole team. So we're really excited to have him. He's a huge asset for us. That said, we did have to convince Michael Butler that Chris is not just an AI bot, and he is in fact a member of the team. So.
Yeah. I want to point out, though, that Bronson knew exactly where this question came from.
Yes, he immediately knew who asked it.
Immediately.
Yes.
I'm not going to name your name. You know who you are. Next up, are there currently any ideas or designs for activated racial abilities? Chris Perkins answered, there are slated designs for racial abilities for each of the races. We're not publishing what those are or how they will work until the final 1 through 50 class abilities and mastery upgrades are finalized. So the answer is yes, but you don't get a no.
Yeah, I mean, it is still exciting. We haven't talked about like active or passive racial abilities for a while. The last time Chris mentioned anything about them, they are, even the passives that were revealed a while back are sort of, as the classes are being more fleshed out, as the systems are being more fleshed out, they're being looked at a little bit and saying, like, do these make sense? Do they have equal weight from, race to race? Are they still important, I guess? But we've never really talked about activated racial abilities. So we will have activated racial abilities. So it's cool.
And you'll eventually get to hear about them. Just not right now.
Hey, listen, we need content for future streams, right? So someday. Yeah. Question number 8. So we got a few left here. It was asked that the traversal abilities and skills, are they still planned? So great question, because as we're doing class refreshes, we're looking at the 1 through 10 experiences, and some of these aren't necessarily, going to be an early ability that you get. But I want to make sure that everyone knows, yes, that we also have had very strong discussions on Parting the Veil in 2 different episodes that you can actually find on YouTube if this is a category that really interests you. The one is based on taming and travel, and then the other is adventuring items and skills. And that's going to cover a lot of those different things. So be sure to check those out. But just to kind of reiterate, things like the rogue rope, druid bridges, summoner rafts, I mean, those are just parts of some of the things, but they are certainly still a part of the game. These items they're a huge part of that adventuring sphere that lives within our current core values of the living world and kind of the sense of adventure that we want our players to feel. And directly from Chris, he just said, it's a huge part of our class interdependency, and what makes the classes unique. And we really couldn't hit the goals that we want with our classes feeling unique and having something special to bring to a group without these special abilities. We've heard about warriors breaking through walls in the past. There's a lot of those throughout the game. So yes, they still exist. And if you missed those Parting the Veil episodes, go back and check those out. You can get a lot more detail. And then I'll throw something else in. So we've also talked recently on Parting the Veil or different streams that there's going to be gliders. Obviously, we just said that the taming system. There's going to be a lot of cool traversal pieces across Terminus for sure.
Yeah, that's so cool. I cannot wait to see that actually be implemented. The idea of it is just amazing. This next one could be the most important topic of tonight. So a community member stated that this game is in serious need of swagger and tacos. Please address this. First of all, I just want to say, swagger, you have the swagger here. We are the swagger, right?
Oh boy. We're in trouble if I'm the swagger. Anyway, continue.
So David Beach, our very favorite crafting game designer, was quick to answer this question, and he took it very seriously.
He took it seriously.
More serious than we expected. But he said that with the depth of the system that they're developing and cooking, tacos should no doubt be covered. Michael Butler, however, our CS guy, was a little bit more excited to think that we were actually going to be having tacos.
He was a little let down. We had to kind of break the news that we weren't having a taco party at work. So
we're not having tacos. So yeah, but so that looks like a solid, possibly, probably. But I did want to address this. I feel like there has been some confusion here. Lore-wise, we know that Terminus is strictly a pizza-centric world, and I don't believe that we can deviate from known canon. For those of you who are not privy to testing, we have a Sylvania's pineapple pizza in-game. And this has been deemed, mostly just by me, as the food of the gods.
Yep. Yeah, if you end up running across Sav in-game, make sure she gives you some pizza. So that's a real thing. I'm trying to get some kind of I think we already have beer basted or bear ribs or something, but I want some kind of special bear something. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Minus filled bear?
No minus stuffed bear. Nobody wants to eat that. Halfling stuffed bear. Okay. Last question here. So question number 10. I really like this one, and it's interesting it was brought up. So the question is, would VR ever be willing to stream doing their work? As there's a lot of interest in this type of stream out there in the gaming community. Anyway, this is a topic that I really, really wanted to talk about because I've actually sat with CP. So let me go a few levels here. So we had a few of our team respond to this one, but Chris and I have actually talked about streaming some of his world building or some of the different things that he does. We talked about potentially doing it in Parting the Veil or doing a Parting the Veil episode that would have that. And he's had a lot of interest in doing that. Now, this could be live. It could be time-lapsed format. It could be a lot of different ways to do it. But he's certainly had interest in showing some of the work, whether it's classes or world building. And I think that that would be really cool. Now, aside from Chris, we've actually had some of our artists be really excited. Like Chris Willis, Tara, Leonardo have all said that they'd really love to be able to stream some of their art design and the projects and stuff that they're working on when it comes to like building the world or doing model work. And Michael Butler even stepped in and said that nobody would be very excited to see him do spreadsheet work. So we'll probably keep him off of there. But I think this is something that in the future it would be really cool to see. And it can come live, it can come time lapsed, it can come in pieces. But this is something that I think for the last year I've really wanted to talk about. So I think it would be fun to do live stream of some of the work we're doing. And I would say that it is potentially possible that we do that. And I'd want to give a shout out here because Doug Bug just said he's actually watched Tara on stream on Twitch before. She actually does this for other things, not Pantheon content. But if she's given the ability to say, hey, yeah, go ahead and show some of the Pantheon content, she's like, I would love to. So yeah, for sure. I think that live streaming some of the work we do, there's a couple hurdles to cross with it, just people being ready to stream or people having the right setup. And what we stream obviously would have to be approved. But I think doing some character model work or some NPC work or creature work, stuff like that, I don't think would be devastating if it's not like super signature, for example. So I think we could see that in the future. I don't want to promise when, but it's something I've wanted to do, and seeing the interest from the team would be really cool. So I think we could possibly see that in the future. So, all right, Sav, that's 10 questions.
That is 10 questions. And thank you to our community for submitting the questions. We gathered these up from our official Discord, which is now open to the public, the PantheonMMO.com forums, and the Pantheon MMO subreddit. We welcome anyone who's interested in getting to know Pantheon to join us on any of these media outlets. And for those who are interested in being more involved in the development process, like we have many members who give us a lot of feedback. Please check out the pledge page on the official website, pantheonmmo.com/pledge.
Yep. As always, thank you for your support, everybody. And all of those that supplied questions for the last segment. We really appreciate that. And we actually did answer like a significant amount of them. Like there's a couple that we couldn't get answers on, so we couldn't do them, but we didn't necessarily avoid them. So maybe we'll see them in the future. But as you just talked about, feedback from our testers being a huge part of what makes Pantheon tick, that is what has made all these class refreshes tick. All the class refreshes we've been doing have been 100% possible because of the feedback from our external and internal testers. So with that said, Sav, if you are ready, let's get to the rogue.
The rogue.
Hello, everyone. This month, we continue our class refresh series by digging into Pantheon Rise of the Fallen's rogue class. If you haven't checked in recently, you can look back at our previous class refreshes on the Direlord and Shaman classes via our YouTube channel, or even by navigating to their updated class pages and watching the videos at the bottom of the breakdowns on PantheonMMO.com. As we have done previously, we'll be breaking down the 1 to 10 experience for the rogue class and giving an idea of what you can expect from Terminus's resident Shadow Walker. So let's get to it. To begin with, the rogue will use a few different resources to dispatch of their enemies in combat. First, readiness, similar to most classes, will build up to allow rogues to use various weapon techniques or abilities that are special to the rogue around these different weapon types. Rogues will also use a system called Opportunity, which can be earned through various methods of gathering anywhere from 0 to 4 opportunity in various ways. You'll see these resources mentioned as we talk through the various abilities. It's also important to note that the rogue is one of the few classes that will begin the game with dual wield, which is essential to their toolkit. Outside of the basic weapon techniques that all classes will start with, the rogue's first class-specific ability is Blackjack Kick. Now, Blackjack Kick does not actually have a cost. Instead, it is navigated by a 15-second cooldown. It is an instant attack and deals 100% weapon damage as physical damage to an enemy, while also granting 1 opportunity. Now what's nice to know here is that it grants 2 opportunity when executed from a target's side. So not only is this a solid option to deal damage, but a way to build up your opportunity resource to combo in various other attacks. Next up, at level 2, is Bloodletter. This will actually cost 1 opportunity and have a 30-second cooldown. This lacerates the target, dealing 120% weapon damage and inflicting bleeding, dealing 50% of the damage dealt as physical damage every 3 seconds for 15 seconds. It's also important to note that Bloodletter cannot critically hit. At this point, Bloodletter will obviously combo directly with Blackjack Kick. However, at level 3, a rogue player will feel much more in control of their opportunity as their signature ability, Shadow Walk, is introduced. Shadow Walk is able to be toggled on and off and allows the rogue to walk in the shadows, making it hard for most enemies to detect you by sight or sound. While shadow walking, you'll generate 1 opportunity and 250 readiness every 2 seconds, and your movement speed is reduced by 40%. It goes without saying that Shadow Walk is perhaps the most important signature ability of the rogue, and allows the player not only to traverse the dangerous world of Terminus in a way that no other class can, but it directly puts valuable resources at the tips of the player's fingers to plan upcoming fights with both readiness and opportunity spend. This ensures the rogue will always enter combat at an advantage, and this is further proven with the ability Sinister Strikes, which is granted at level 4. Sinister Strikes will also cost 1 opportunity with a 30-second cooldown. It will consume all the opportunity points that you have to activate it, and while active, the damage of your combat techniques are increased by 15% for each of those opportunity points that are consumed. Now, using a combat technique will immediately end Sinister Strikes, unless that technique is used while Shadow Walk is active. So this ability gives the rogue, who begins combat most of the times from the shadows, a very strong burst of damage, and also gives them a chance to strike twice with an empowered technique, one such as Shiv, a basic dagger technique, once to start from stealth, but again before the 15 seconds runs out. Watch your threat, however, my fellow rogue friends. At level 5, the rogue's ability line begins to introduce support with an ability, Springwire Trap. This also costs 1 opportunity, has a 30-second cooldown, and places a trap for 60 seconds that will coil around the feet of the first enemy to approach, rooting them in place for 60 seconds. Damage dealt will break the root effect. Now this does require stealth to lay down, and you may only have 2 traps active at the same time. While the rogue player can already be strategic on when to engage and how to set up their engagement roles with enemies, this allows the rogue to plan for potential setup of group pulls and further assist with scouting ahead via Shadow Walk. A rogue isn't just a greedy group member who pumps out damage, but now can be a strategic asset in planning what's ahead. Next up at level 6, the rogue will get Umbral Edge. Umbral Edge will take 1,000 readiness and has a 5-second cooldown. Now this is a technique, and it deals anywhere between 100 to 200% weapon damage to the target, but also reduces its accuracy by 10% for 24 seconds. This will allow another strong damage ability, but also assist the group with accuracy reduction on the target, adding to the utility side of the rogue's toolkit. At level 7, the rogue will receive its second trap, this time, Explosive Trap. This also costs 1 opportunity, and you place a trap that will explode when the enemy approaches, dealing fire damage to the target. Obviously, just like your previous trap, it requires stealth, and you may only have 2 active traps at once. While this is not a utility trap, the rogue adds to his damage and again sets up for an explosive engagement scenario with incoming enemies. Level 8 is a significant level for growing your young rogue, as you will receive 4 total abilities, all of which have large impact. But let's start with their utility offering, Caltrops. So Caltrops is 1 opportunity to scatter Caltrops at the target's location for 30 seconds, and in this all enemies will have their movement speed reduced by 75% while stepping on the Caltrops. In Pantheon, an enemy that begins to flee a losing battle can cause disastrous results for your party. Nothing can overwhelm you more than when an enemy who finds a way to reach his friends and allies and brings them into the fight. Caltrops will negate and heavily slow an enemy attempting to run, so your group can safely dispatch them. However, it's important to note that a rogue who goes too hard on damage could be stuck without the opportunity needed when your foe begins to flee. Next up, the rogue will be introduced to Toxin Craft. This does not have a cost and is a 5-second cast time. The rogue will create 5 vials of synthetic toxin. Applying this toxin to your primary weapon will give it a chance to deal additional chemical damage to an enemy. This generated stack of poison can be added to both your main hand and offhand weapons, adding to all the damage a rogue dishes out. A highly impactful offering, but the other 2 abilities the rogue receives at level 8 in Backstab and Waylay may end up being the favorites of rogues, as they offer 2 ways to deal massive damage. Let's start with Backstab. Backstab is a general technique that takes 1000 readiness. It deals 300% weapon damage. Now you must be behind your target, and it does require a piercing weapon. Now with that said, are you a rogue that doesn't always use daggers? Because that's where Waylay will come into play. This is a general technique very similarly that deals 300% weapon damage. You must be behind your target, but this requires a blunt or slashing weapon. While at the start, these abilities will function the same way to allow rogues of various weapon loadouts to perform, expect them to grow in functionality as the rogue grows in tandem. At level 9, the rogue will receive its second debuff, which will help the group in Corrosive Brew. Now this takes 2 opportunity and has a 1-second cooldown. Throw a flask of corrosive toxins at the target, reducing armor class by 15 for 5 minutes. Now finally, at level 10, the rogue will receive a passive ability, which will need to be slotted on their utility bar, and a support ability that'll aid in the group in a tremendous way. Now let's start with their passive ability, Ambidextrous. Ambidextrous has no costs and again just needs to be slotted on your utility bar. You gain bonuses based on your offhand weapon type. With a piercing weapon in your offhand, you will increase your haste by 5%. A slashing weapon in your offhand reduces the offhand damage penalty by 10%. And finally, a blunt weapon grants offhand attacks a 5% chance to stun for 1 second. This gives the rogue options on how they will play the various weapon types, and also options on which stats and gear will support them most. This means rogues will have various options in living out their class fantasy. But finally, let's talk about Smoke Trick. Smoke Trick costs 3 opportunity and has a 20-second cooldown. You throw a vial at the enemy's feet that releases mesmerizing toxins, incapacitating them for up to 18 seconds. Any damage done to the target while mesmerized will break the effect. Now duration can be increased by 50% against disoriented targets. This also requires stealth, and if used while the target is stunned by flash bomb, the target will also lose all threat against the rogue. No enchanter in the group? A rogue can flex in important moments when prepared to keep a couple enemies locked down. Of course at a cost, as a rogue can stay stealth to lock down the target, but this means they will not be part of dwindling down the enemy's HP. So weighing the cost becomes important to the group. A level 10 rogue should be full of tricks, no pun intended, whether it's exploding from the shadows with heavy damage, debuffing a target to help the group, or just scouting ahead for the group in a dangerous world. The rogue has a lot of tools at their disposal in their 1 through 10 experience. Now we hope you've enjoyed this look at Pantheon's rogue class, and be sure to check out its refreshed class page on PantheonMMO.com, as well as the Shaman and Dire Lord we covered in previous months. All right, so there's the rogue. So now we have rogue, shaman, dire lord, and you'll find a standalone video. Sav, you're actually doing class page updates, right? Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, the class page should be completely updated, probably by Tuesday, just so that, everyone who wants to just look at the updates at a glance can just pop into the class pages. And we've done the Dire Lord, the Shaman, like you said, and now the Rogue, and all the information is current and useful.
And for those of you that want to check the Rogue video back out, but don't want to sit through a longer stream or piece through, towards the end of the month, we'll rip that video out and release it as a standalone video so it can actually live on the class page. So you'll be able to go to a class page once we finish the refreshes. You'll get to see the updated data on there, but then you'll also be able to watch sort of that 1 to 10 experience and get kind of an idea about it as well. So that's the goal for all the class pages once all the classes are revealed and such. But we'll be doing that as we do these refreshes. So, but that was a lot of fun. I really hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. I know that might be hard, Sav, but I very much enjoyed doing the Rogue video.
It was okay. I would like you to explain a little bit more about opportunity, since it is so Rogue specific, maybe a brief explanation.
Yeah, so for those of you that have played, this is going to be pretty easy to understand. But for those of you who have not or maybe haven't followed, Opportunity is a resource which the Rogue can stack 4 units of, which I'm just calling units, like 4 stacks or whatever you want to call it. And this is built mostly through Shadow Walk. So when you're Shadow Walking, you're actually gaining Opportunity stacks. And you also, if you saw the video just there, or so cut it, you also gain Readiness. So you use this opportunity for various traps, damage boosts, support skills, and more. And what you're seeing in the 1 to 10 experience, that's really just scratching the surface. There will be some abilities like Blackjack Kick, and there'll be other abilities that come down the road that can also get you some opportunity within combat as well. Because obviously we do have ways to, without spoiling anything, we have ways. We mentioned Flash Bomb in that video, which plays into Smoke Trick a bit. But Flash Bomb's a way to, in combat, go into stealth. So there's going to be ways to get into stealth in combat, but also ways to earn opportunity while in combat as well. So you're going to be managing your opportunity stacks, and then you're going to be managing your readiness, which is like your technique bar. And you get that also from Shadow Walk, as I said, but then you get it through attacking and taking hits. And then you'll have techniques. So for those that don't know, I won't get into this in depth, but techniques are basically based around weapon usage. So for example, Waylay uses swords or blunt weapons, and Backstab uses daggers, for example. So as you're leveling your daggers, there's also abilities that all classes that you can use daggers will have. Like Shiv, for example, when you start, is a dagger attack that helps and deals a little bit of damage off the bat to use your technique. Every class will get that. But then classes will also specialize in certain weapons and get abilities that tie into them, or just tie into general techniques. So as a rogue, long story short, which wasn't short at all, you use opportunity to do a lot of abilities, and you'll also be balancing that with readiness. So
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. The rogue is very diverse, and it's not just a good-looking DPS machine. It's got the utility abilities like Spring Wire Trap, which is a root, Caltrops a slow, Smoke Trick a mez, which are all insanely useful in strategic areas, especially tight-spaced areas like dungeons where you just aren't going to want your mobs running around willy-nilly. You have to control them. So it's great that
and to hit on that too, and we have in multiple play sessions, I've messed this up. Like I might have even messed this up in some of the streams I did a while ago. Like if you go all out on your damage and you're like, I want to use all my opportunity to do damage things, you can. Like that's fine. But there's been a lot of times where something starts to run and people are like, minus, slow it down. And I'm like, I can't. Like my Blackjack Kick is down and I can't get that opportunity that's needed. So it's not just like click your buttons as much as you can, which I know a lot of people are fans of. It's like being smart about when you're using it and what you're pulling a little bit so that you can avert some of those issues with the mob running. Because mobs running in Pantheon it's a disaster. It's really something you don't want to do. So
Yeah, strategy in a game. Who would have thunk it? I do need to know, though. I want to know who in the community is using blunt weapons for a rogue. I want to know right now.
Here's the best part.
Show
I had
yourselves.
nothing to do with this question. I had nothing to do with this. Everybody in the community knows I'm daggers as a rogue. But it's funny that you said that. So
I just want to know what sort of rogue is just like thudding on things.
someone said stuns. I mean, that is a good reason. And in Pantheon, it's kind of there. So the thing that I didn't talk about in the video that I just wanted to touch on before we wrap up tonight is for those who had gotten their hands on the rogue before or if you saw older Rogue videos that we did in various community things, the support mechanics were awesome. And I loved, I mean, people remember I used to say I'd be a support rogue. I didn't even care about damage. It was so much fun. The support mechanics were really strong, almost too strong. I think I got the rogue nerfed before I even joined VR, which is sad. But it was really only half complete. And I think a lot of rogue players are like, you know, it's cool that we have all this support stuff, but like, what if I just want to put out damage? What if I really want to do heavy damage, heavy bursts, stuff like that? And I think for a while we didn't feel that out of the rogue. With the feedback we got and with the work that Chris has put into the class, I think it's now at a point where the damage feels really good. Like, hopefully we don't get nerfed, like really good. And the support is also really in a strong place still, but obviously it's a little bit more reasonable than some of the real early videos. So a rogue's not going to replace a pure support class like an enchanter does, but they can really help out a group at the cost of pulling their damage back. So like a smart rogue who's going to be more than just damage is going to have a lot of fun in Pantheon. So, but that's it. That's it for tonight. We did 10 burning questions. Got our rogue refresh out there. I could talk rogue for another 2 hours. I won't do that to everybody. But it's been a fun one. It's been a really fun one.
He'll do that. He'll do that for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Believe me, we hear it, guys.
Yeah. Let me be honest. That's what I do. I don't design classes, but I'll definitely be annoying about the ones I love. So, so for those of you that don't know, we'll have Party in the Veil next week. Please come back to Twitch and join us for that. If you didn't see Party in the Veil last month, we talked about the healing classes, and that was a lot of fun, and it went over really well. There was a lot of people that liked hearing about the druid that didn't have all the inside info about it, and kind of hearing about some of how the classes will play differently. And this month, we're actually going to talk about the 3 tank classes. So that's, and I saw a lot of people talking about it in chat, Sav. That is the Dire Lord, which we've all seen quite a bit of, but then also a lot of discussion on the warrior and the paladin. So I know Nerds the podcast was super like, where's the paladin? Where's the paladin? Next week.
Could be beans. Could be beans. You never know.
Now, keep in mind, Party in the Veil is a podcast style live stream. It is discussion based. It is design dissection. I guess you'd say like dissecting design and really talking through design. That's what the whole point of Party in the Veil. Our live streams will be more of the video like we see here. But eventually, once that paladin class is rolled out, whenever that may be, we'll have a video just like we did today. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun tonight. Yep. Community, thank you for being so active in the chat. Had a lot of fun reading through what you guys were talking about in there. And we will see you, next week, I guess. All right, Seth. Have a good one.
Night, guys.